And what we know is Senator Bradford, who was the only courageous one to put these true reparations bills forward, told us that he got word at the Democratic National Convention is when people started to take a different position on these reparation bills. So we know it actually goes above and beyond Gavin Newsom.
We out here to fight for them reparations, right?
Yeah. What do we want?
We out here.
What do we want?
We are Reparations Over Everything. Yes, I was saying Reparations Over Everything coalition, right?
Thank you for being here today as we stand united in the fight for lineage-based reparations and justice. As chair of the California Reparations Task Force, my name is Camila Victoria Moore. I am deeply dismayed by the actions of Governor Newsom and the California Legislative Black Caucus. After years of work from the task force, we laid out a clear plan for reparations, including the recommendations to create a reparations agency and a reparations fund for descendants of enslaved people who have also suffered from Jim Crow and ongoing discrimination in California. Yet, the California Legislative Black Caucus worked with Newsom to undermine the task force's efforts by blocking SB 1403 and SB 1331, reparations bills that would have created a reparations fund and agency introduced by Senator Stephen Bradford. Also, in May 2024, the California Legislative Black Caucus sent a letter to Governor Newsom asking for $6 million of the $12 million recently allocated to reparations implementation to be diverted to a nonprofit organization, the California Black Freedom Fund, that has no clear plan for how it would implement reparations. In fact, a conversation with the California Black media, due to public pressure, found that a representative from the California Black Freedom Fund, Mark Philpart, publicly has backed away from the funds, stating that they had no idea what their role would have been if they had received it. I call this is corruption. Meanwhile, Governor Newsom sought to amend the agency bill to extend it to a 2-year study, a delay that we firmly reject. The time for studies is over. Governor Newsom's recent apology for slavery, while seemingly a step forward, rings hollow when paired with actions that deny real justice. Excluding the public and the press from this reparations bill signing ceremony only further raises questions about the apology's sincerity. Lastly, under international law, an apology without material reparations not only fails, but exasperates harm. We demand a public apology after reparations, real reparations, are enacted, one that acknowledges not only slavery, but also the harm caused by the Black Caucus and Newsom's administration's obstruction. Thank you.
On August 31st, the California Legislative Black Caucus conspired to kill bills on the day that we plan to celebrate progress in a fight that has been ongoing for hundreds of years. On August 31st, Congressional Legislative Black Caucus members dismissed, disrespected, and were indignant toward members of the community that put them into power to work on behalf of us. The apology was insincere because they refused to speak to us, walked past us, and even Reggie Jones Sawyer, the assembly member who was tasked to bring the bills to the floor to be voted on, mocked us and laughed at us in our faces. The apology was insincere because at the press conference following the August 31st fallout, the governor demanded that the community members owed the CLBC an apology. I say, why do we owe them an apology? Is it because we have exposed another governmental conspiracy like COINTELPRO to continue to neglect the specific needs of Black people and disempower our community? The apology is insincere because that plaque and that paper does nothing to feed our families, does nothing to stop people from dying on the streets homeless, does nothing to stop Black people from being pushed out of Los Angeles, does nothing to stop Black people from being pushed out of California. The only people who have been pushed out at a rapid rate while other communities continue to apology is insincere because we could have had something transformative. We were only given an insincere, symbolic performance, nothing that repairs us, nothing that brings us justice. The apology is insincere because there was no tangible action to pay the debt that is long overdue to my grandparents. The apology is insincere because they were intentionally locked out of wealth while white communities lived off of the interest of the labor stolen from our grandparents. To be clear, there is no apology and there is no reparations without a check. We were locked out of wealth and we need to be given that wealth back.
I am Friday Jones. My name is Kanta Jones Muhammad. I'm the president of the National Assembly of American Slavery Descendants. I'm also the vice chair of the Los Angeles Reparations Advisory Commission. And I, as an individual and NAASD, stands in solidarity with Reparations Over Everything Coalition. The governor's gutting of the reparations agency, his vetoing of the land return bill, and failure of the CLBC to bring the $12 million reparations fund to the floor for a vote have negatively for reparations. Within 1 week of Governor Newsom's actions, Democratic presidential candidate Kamala Harris stated that she would not issue an executive order for H.R. 40. She opted to send the bill back to Congress despite the passing of Sheila Jackson Lee and Cori Bush's loss during her primary. The Democratic Party, from the top of the ticket to the bottom of the ticket, must hear our call for accountability with our vote. Reparations is a nonpartisan issue. We have presidential candidate Donald Trump referring to taxpayer-paid reparations as if the taxation of American freedmen was not immediately implemented after the Civil War, as if American freedmen do not live in a governmental system that found a way to strengthen the political power of white Southern landowners with the 3/5 of a man rule, yet the Republic has yet to develop a mechanism within the Electoral College that ensures American freedmen have political power in this country. It was our ancestors that funded the Freedmen's Bank and were the largest buyers of Treasury bills after the Civil War. Not only did we build this economy on free labor, but our beloved Union soldiers invested in this nation, and it's time for this nation to invest in us. Legacy advocates like the Alliance for Reparations, Reconciliation, and Truth, led by AB 3121 Commissioners Dr. Cheryl Grills, Lisa Holder, and Don Tamaki, that voted against lineage reparations during the hearings. This alliance has a NARC commissioner and NCOBRA members that have influence and were funded by the California Black Freedom Fund, Liberation Ventures, Decolonizing Wealth. At every turn, these individuals have undermined the California work that this very coalition has done over the past 5 years. I am holding them accountable to the descendant population in California, the 5th largest black population in the United States. I am calling them out and publicly calling them in. We have been here before when philanthropy quieted the progress made politically during the civil rights era of the 1960s and late 1970s. I call on Gavin Newsom, our governor, to move these pieces of legislation by executive order. I call on our voters to remember the betrayal at the poll this November. I call on the nonprofits that have been funded by these organizations that I have named to stand in solidarity with us.
My name is Lori Jenkins, and I am one of the co-chairs of the Lineage, Equity, and Advancement Project, otherwise known as LEAP, and I'm also representing the Coalition for a Just and Equitable California, also known as CJEC.
My name is Nita Watson. I am the president of the National Volunteer Council on Freedmen Affairs. I am also on the board of LEAP. I am on the board of NAASD, and a very, very proud organizer with CJEC.
Our statement today is that the Lineage, Equity, and Advancement Project, or LEAP, Coalition for a Just and Equitable California, CJEC, and National Volunteer Council on Freedmen Affairs, NVCFA, recognizes that Governor Newsom has signed the bill which focuses on providing a formal apology to systemic racism against black residents, formal acknowledgement of California's historical role in slavery. While this is an important first step toward healing and recognition, It must be an apology can help validate the grievances of affected communities and lay the groundwork for dialogue, but it does not address the systemic issues directly. True reparations must translate acknowledgement into actionable steps that directly benefit those harmed. This includes policies and programs aimed at correcting economic disparities, social inequity, and community disinvestment arising from historical injustices. An apology lacks the force of law and does not and investing in community infrastructure. Apologies can be seen as fleeting gestures that may lead to complacency without tangible follow-up measures. A formal apology does not ensure ongoing commitment to addressing the issues that perpetuate social inequities.
We urge the California legislature to introduce SB 1403, SB 1331, and other transformational reparations legislation in the 2025 session. We also demand that the California Legislative Black Caucus act to override Governor Newsom's veto of SB 1050, land return taken by eminent domain. This bill earned overwhelming bipartisan support with supermajority approval in both the Assembly and Senate, making it fully eligible for a legislative override. We also call on Governor Newsom to actively collaborate with grassroots organizations, such as those here before you today, that are on the front lines of this fight, and together change and achieve real justice for Black Americans in California. Thank you.
I come here representing descendants of chattel slavery and in the power and strength of my ancestors who had to endure all the harms of slavery, Jim Crow, and all the continued harms that we have had to suffer and endure. I am disappointed that key reparation bills which would establish and fund a reparations agency have been stalled or blocked. My question is, how long must we wait? Like Langston Hughes said, what happens to a dream deferred? Does it dry up like a raisin in the sun, or fester like a sore and then run? Does it stink like rotten meat, or crusted sugar over like a syrupy sweet? Maybe it just sags like a heavy load, or does it explode? As I watched the news reports, I saw one bill after another being vetoed. We have spent the last few years waiting for the California legislature and the governor to do right by the Black people of California. How long must we wait? There are three things that I want to address: additional studies for reparations, lineage-based research, and the establishment of a reparations agency, which includes a genealogy department. We do not need additional studies for reparations. The research and documentation from the California Reparations Task Force have rested its case, with 1,100 pages of a comprehensive report, along with an additional 111 pages of recommendations. Why are we beating a dead horse? There comes a time when no more research or study is needed. Let's write this chapter in history and do right by the descendants of American slavery. To qualify people, we must establish clearly defined requirements for individuals who are descendants of chattel slavery. One way of doing this is through a lineage-based process, which will require genealogical research. We will need knowledgeable genealogists and individuals who will trace and fill out the necessary forms with the supporting documents. There are also needs to be a safeguard for those who were raised in the foster care system and or were adopted.
One of the main points of reparations is no repetition of the crime. I just walked down from the criminal court building where we are there with two families. The family of Sky Young, who was shot down because he was black by a security guard, and the family of Christopher DeAndre Mitchell, who was shot down by a police officer. These crimes are continuing in California. So again, real reparations begins with non-repetition. And what we know is Senator Bradford, who was the only courageous one to put these true reparations bills forward, told us that he got word at the Democratic National Convention is when people started to take a different position on these reparation bills. So we know it actually goes above and beyond Gavin Newsom. So we need everybody to remember this November 5th when you go to vote. We also want to point out that what happened with the reparations bills is typical of the relationship of America with Black America. America is falling right now because it has continually held down the primary people that have built up and exalted this nation. You got 250 years of free labor that put the American economy far above any and everybody else. Every industry in this country has been propelled by Black Americans. Whether we talking sports, education, the military, who won all the wars for America? I keep knocking this over. Who won all the wars for America? Our ancestors. Right here in Los Angeles. What propelled Los Angeles? Biddy Mason, Charlotta Bass, Bunchy Carter, numerous others. But again, it's this refusal to support the Black Americans who are moving this nation forward and actually committing suicide by trying to hold us down. Just like Gavin Newsom, he might as well know he ended his political career. The California Legislative Black Caucus might as well know y'all have ended your political careers. You might weather the storm November 5th simply because some of you have opponents that we don't really support. But I want to remind everybody, you don't have to vote for either. Whether it's Isaac Bryan or his opponent, whether it's Tina McKenna or her opponent, you don't have to vote for either. Pull back some of them votes that got Tina McKenna a 40,000 margin. That got Isaac Bryan a 60,000 vote margin. Let's withdraw as many of them votes as we can, all who see this. So again, we want to remind the people that ultimately the power is in our hands. Even though our numbers are disappearing in California, we got to act right now today, November 5th, and we got to send a message to all of them that this will no longer be tolerated. And we also want to let Vice President Kamala Harris know we need more than more studies that will be sent to Congress. We need you to act with executive orders if you get into office. All power to the people.
I just also want to highlight, in Governor Newsom's insincere apology, he excluded the public and the press. That needs to be emphasized because under international law, an apology must be public and paired with material reparations to be meaningful, neither of which happened here. Thus, it is essential, as we have all stated today, that Senate Bill 1403 and SB 1331, the bills to create a reparation fund and agency specifically for descendants of U.S. chattel slavery, must be reintroduced and passed into law without changes, as these measures are critical to advancing reparations. Additionally, as we have mentioned, there must be ongoing public engagement and accountability from the California Legislative Black Caucus regarding the $12 million budget allocation for reparations implementation for this upcoming fiscal year. Only after these material reparations are in place, we deserve a redo should a proper public apology be made, one that fully acknowledges the harm of slavery and its afterlife, as well as the recent actions and corruption by the California Legislative Black Caucus and Governor Newsom's administration in their path of obstructing justice for descendants of slaves.
I think it's been said. I think one of the short-sightedness and the despicableness of it, apology acknowledges and recognizes harm and wrong. But apology by itself is meaningless, and everybody up here said that. Let's make it real. I think the idea of overriding the legislation is something that we are calling for to make sure that those whose land was stolen from them should be returned. And so I want to be in favor of that and move forward. I think people have spoke here have covered this subject in depth. The only reason that they asked me to speak is because I've been here for 76 years and on the battlefield for 55, for 55. So they just asked me to speak because I've just been doing this for a long time. And one of the things I want to say, because I've been doing this, one of the things that is rewarding to me and many of us is that we have come this far. Many of us were told, y'all ain't gonna never get that. By black folks and white folks told us that. But here we stand. Thank you so much.